might ask yourself, oh, well, with the market being so good, we really need staging, or with this property being a lower end property or a unit, do we really need staging? And the answer to that is pretty much always yes. When I price a property, I'm still extrapolating on what stuff's recently sold for, and I am pushing things, but you've got to know how much to push and not push too far. There's a basic thing that I did as a sales agent was to set a deadline to let everyone know that we've written an offer.
Welcome to Perth Property Insider, where you will learn how to grow your wealth and improve your life using Perth property. Our show is brought to you by Investors Edge Real Estate, the highly rated and award-winning property management, sales and buyers agency servicing the whole of Perth. Now, here's your host, Jared Mann.
Today, I wanted to have a deep dive on how to get the best price when selling your property, because despite Perth looking like we're still going to have another 2 to 3 years of growth ahead, many people are choosing to sell their properties at the moment, and I'm working with a lot of clients to decide on the best timing for that around their lease end dates and their overall situation of when they're needing the money, and also just making sure that it fully makes sense to sell, because we want to be selling for a good reason. And those reasons I've covered off in previous podcasts. But in short, you have to have a good reason to sell and sit on the sidelines, because the outlook for growth is still very good for Perth. Now, people come to me, and over the last year, I've sold around 65 to 70 properties, which does make me a master salesperson and receive that award from REWA. And so it's a thing that I specialize in. And over the last 16 years, I've really refined my craft of being a sales agent. We do have our buyers agency here as well that I'm heavily involved in. And I love wearing both of those hats and getting great results for each type of client. And so when I'm acting as a sales agent for our clients, and I don't just work with our landlords, they also get me to sell many of their personal homes. And over the 16 years, I've sold homes for some people at an 8 or 9 times as they've gone about upgrading their homes, selling their investment properties to do that in many cases, selling some of their investment properties that they've outgrown and when they've wanted to change up into better assets. My model for being a sales agent is very different in that I've sold across the whole of Perth. I've sold in probably over 200 suburbs over the 16 years, thousands of properties. What I do differently is that because I sell all over Perth, I care more about the relationship, and I'm less transactionally focused like a local agent would be that only deals in 1 or 2 suburbs. When they sell for someone, they usually never see them again. The good ones still do a great job and try to build that relationship so that someone refers them. But the reality is that they're not probably going to see that person again. Whereas my model is very different, because I care about the relationship and sell all over. I really want to leave every person with an amazing experience. And from 16 years of doing this, what I've know from speaking to my clients all the time is what they want the most is to get the best price. And that's what I focus on. So I wrote a book called The Ultimate Home Seller's Guide, and I'll put a link to it in the show notes so you can grab a free digital copy. And in this book, I cover off how to master the 5 price influences to sell your home for more. And when I'm working with a seller, they don't have to read the book. They get the real thing in me. I wanted to break down today 5 of my core strategies to getting the best price whenever I sell a property for someone. So what are we trying to do here? First is to get great presentation of the property. Might sound like a no-brainer, but not everyone thinks that it's worth taking the small amount of time to get everything looking like it's in great condition, everything well maintained, everything presenting well with that first impression. It doesn't cost much money. In most cases for our landlords, I just go through, I make a big list of suggested improvements. Sometimes the list is very small because we do try to maintain our properties and keep them in good condition over the years. So sometimes, and a lot of the time, it's really just, how about we add a few more plants in? How about we get some mulch in the gardens? How about we get some of these cosmetic cracks that have built up over the last 10 to 20 years, patched and painted throughout the house. And, if the property is a fair bit older and the carpets have been there 15 or 20 years and they're starting to look pretty raggedy, or the paintwork has had a lot of wear and tear over the last 10 to 20 years, then we'd look at potentially vacating the tenant and repainting the house, replacing floor coverings. And so floor coverings, landscaping and painting are the top three things that add a huge amount of value that aren't going to cost that much money to do. And so the final thing I'm looking at for presentation is, just because the property's tenanted doesn't mean we should sell with tenants in place. And they have to, in my mind, be presenting well enough that they're going to help our sale, not hurt our sale. So I'll look at whether I can work with the tenant to get some of their clutter or other items presenting better for the sale. But otherwise, some people just have a huge amount of clutter and it's the way that they live, and they've overfilled their house, and it's going to make our house look small when we come to try to sell it. So they can be treating the property fabulously underneath. They can have the property to be clean. The actual underlying condition can be great. But if they're not going to help us and they're going to hurt the price, then we're often left with no choice but to vacate them. Now, when we've got a vacant property, buyers can come in and they can see every single little imperfection that there is. And so that's why the majority of my clients then freshen the property up, and we do this staging so that buyers can get really emotional about the life that they could have in living in this house or property. And you might ask yourself, oh, well, with the market being so good, do we really need staging? Or with this property being a lower end property or a unit, do we really need staging? And the answer to that is pretty much always yes, providing that you can afford it from a cash flow point of view, because it always pays the return. And I did a fabulous episode with Jody on staging, and we had a deep dive into how that can significantly increase the selling price of your property. And so she's from Bala Styling, if you want to check out her online, and don't fill her up with too much work because I'm using her a lot at the moment and I want her to be available to my clients too. So once we've got this presentation into an emotional space where home buyers can see themselves living in the property, investors want to own the property and make it theirs, and there's a real pride, emotional piece to that. People think, oh, investors don't buy with emotions. Yes, they do. We really want to make this presentation to drive those emotions as much as possible, and it's the most important step that we do first to getting the best price. So once we've got that dialed in, the second step that we do is exceptional marketing. So that includes a professional set of photos. You never cut corners on photos. I saw someone posting on our Perth Property Investment Group about why their house isn't selling, and I offered to give them some quick input, even though they had another agent already. I looked at the listing. The photos were shocking. It's like someone shot them with a cloudy mobile phone. I looked at and the photos, and they were vacant photos, so there was nothing really to latch on to. They didn't use staging, obviously. They also didn't use digital furnishing, which if my client isn't willing to use staging and doesn't have the money for it, I would always use digital furnishing at a very low cost to have furniture superimposed into the photos so people can see that lifestyle that they could have in the house and how furniture could be laid out, and really build up the emotional pull of the photos to get people in the door and to see it and or to inquire if they're over east. So those things are essential. And where I tend to spend the most then is I'm not about wasting money on profiling myself. So because I'm not a local agent, I don't get business from the local area. I'm only after finding as many buyers as possible and getting maximum exposure. And I don't care about profiling myself. So where I spend the most is on a highlight listing on realestate.com, because realestate.com gets the majority of traffics here in Perth over Domain and Rewa. And that, you might say, oh, well, do we need a highlight listing at the moment because there's very few listings on market? Well, a highlight listing appears in the surrounding suburb search results first. And let's say someone's looking to buy in a suburb near you, you want to appear to them and capture as many other buyers as possible. And the same rules always exist, that more buyers, more competition is going to relate in more price. So it is definitely worth still doing. And I use a feature on Rewe if we haven't sold in the second week, because that's quite economical. And so the majority of the money goes into internet marketing to get more exposure and eyeballs, not about getting me extra sellers with signboards or flyer drops or other stuff that really is only about the selling agent, not so much about your house. So while I mentioned a signboard, we would still do one if it's on a busy road and we're going to get the exposure that warrants the cost. Other things we would obviously do is we do digital brochures for free, and there's some things we can consider if the property's subdividable or has views or aspects that are well noted from the air. We can do aerial drone photography or video. And a lot of agents, including myself, when virtual tours and professional video came out, this was probably 10 years ago, we started using them, and it did give us a point of difference on our listings. But I've actually gone away from using virtual tours and video now, because we don't want the buyer to see too much of the property. We want them to come to the home open or to inquire with me about a video, so that I can get their details and get their feedback then on what they think the property's worth, whether it suits them. And there can be a two-way exchange and get feedback for my seller to know where we stand. When I use a virtual tour or a video, it goes up online and everyone sees it. People make judgments. They don't come to the home open. They don't inquire. They rule it out for all the kinds of reasons, and we don't find out why. So I take a simple walkthrough video on my phone. It's rawly shot. It shows everything. So if I get an inquiry from an East Coast investor or a migrant that can't make the home open, then I send them my walkthrough video that shows things as if they're walking through the home, and they trust that a lot more than a professionally shot video that's edited and cut. And that's what I do for the East Coasters and migrants that are wanting to make decisions remotely. So this second point of exceptional marketing can't be skipped. And if you don't invest in someone that knows what they're doing with preparing all of this, you want a compelling advert copy as well. You want, all the details on there for someone to make a decision. You want the rates, the council rates, the water rates, what's the building area, what age built was it, what's the likely rental price. Those are all the facts that someone needs, but then you want the emotional, and compelling and the pull. So you want to look at what's the best features of this home, who is it ideally going to suit, and you want to target the advert copy to be emotionally compelling and focused on that target market and those major benefits that they're going to like and be most attracted to. So I could spend a whole episode talking about marketing copy. I get pretty excited about it. So third part to getting the best price is pricing for demand. And in this market, it's a lot easier because there's a huge amount of demand, but we don't want to overdo it and push the asking price too much, such that we then only get limited buyers through and we don't get competition among buyers. So when I price a property, I'm still extrapolating on what stuff's recently sold for, and I am pushing things, but you got to know how much to push and not push too far. So, I prefer a from pricing because it gives people an idea of what the floor is to what we will look at accepting, and we'll only look at accepting that minimum price if it proves that there's not a better price out there. And I always want to make that a price that we would actually be prepared to accept if it turned out to be the lowest price after a few weeks. We don't want to bait people in, deceive them, and misrepresent the pricing, which causes a lot of frustration among buyers. And I certainly see it on our buyers agency side, where agents do this knowingly and willingly. And hopefully the industry is getting cleaned up, and people, more and more agents are being realistic in their pricing, what they tell sellers, what they tell buyers, and putting out there what they truly are prepared to accept as a minimum. So the other options are to use a range or to use a higher fixed price. The reason I use a from is that we're going to drive more demand with a from. The range can often cap the price because someone sees the top end of the range and they think, oh, that's a cap on where things are at. People sometimes get scared by the top end of the range, whereas if they'd come through, they might have actually been willing to pay it. And when it comes to a fixed asking price, people are going to look at that fixed asking price and come in under it anyway. So if you're going to accept under that price, why not use a from price, drive as much demand from everyone that, is going to find it. More people are going to find it in the search results because it's going to be that slightly lesser price than if you'd use a fixed price where it would be a slightly higher price with the expectation that people are going to offer less. So from pricing to me especially works well in this market, and I've used it in all markets. So we really want to price the property for demand is the key to that third point on getting the best price. The fourth point is that we want to create competition around the sale. I want to whip everyone into a frenzy. I want to make the home open time limited at 20 minutes so people see one another and they hear me discussing that someone else wants to make an offer. I'm sending the text messages to people on how to make an offer. People are seeing me interact with others that are keen on the property. And if you extend out that home open to an hour, and let's say you're only getting 10 people through, you could easily have someone come through and not see someone else in that period. You don't get more buyers if you extend out longer. What you get is a lesser feeling of competition. So I get there 10 minutes before to open things up. If there's some people there already and out the front and I've got the house ready, I'll let them in. I allow 10 minutes afterwards for the stragglers that, always run late no matter how long you set the home open for. And from everything I say to people, I'm trying to create a sense of competition with the expectation that we are going to be sold. And how I then go on to handle the interest is critical to getting the best price. And this leads into my next point on a strong negotiation. So if we've done all these other points well, with presenting the property really well, doing exceptional marketing, pricing for demand, and creating this sense of competition, then it sets us up for a strong negotiation. So how I handle the buyer interest is as soon as I get the first person that asks to write an offer, I will text everyone that's come through the home open and tell them that we're working towards getting all offers in, usually by 12 o'clock tomorrow or 6 o'clock tomorrow. And if they've got any interest, to let me know by then. Now, this gives people a definite time frame to make a decision. On our buyer's agency side, we've bought a lot of properties over the last year, and virtually no agent has texted us to tell us that there's an offer and to give us a deadline on making an offer. And there's many times when, if we're not reaching out and telling the agent that we're interested, we would otherwise miss out on properties. And buyers miss out on properties all the time because they're just not aware of how quickly they need to act or the time frame that they need to make a decision. So what I thought was a basic thing that I did as a sales agent was to set a deadline to let everyone know that we've written an offer and to let them know that what we're working towards. Virtually no other sales agent has ever done this to us on the buyer's agency side, and I'm not exaggerating. It's such a basic thing. What they tend to often do is get an offer that they might think is good, tell a few buyers that just so happen to speak to them that they've got an offer. If they think it's good, they press to get it accepted. They're generally lazy. They're not wanting to write up more offers if there are more. And there are some exceptional operators out there, but they're few and far between. So I want to give everyone the same fair chance of offering. And when people put their offer in, I'm going to also give them a guidance as to, is this a strong offer? Should we bother writing it up? Is it going to have a good chance of securing the property? And if it's not, I'm going to be very straight up with them and say, hey, we've already got 3 or 4 offers that are higher than yours at this price point. There's no point writing it up. But if you do want to offer higher, come back and let me know. And that guidance, I think people appreciate. When we've got a multiple offer situation, everyone needs to put forward their best price. There's not going to be any second chances. And I make sure that they understand that. So people are putting their best foot forward, making it as strong as possible, both in terms of what the terms the seller's wanting as well as price. This negotiation really results in getting us the best overall price for the property. So all the things work together out of these 5 points. And that's, in essence, my overall strategy for getting the best price. And what sort of results have I seen lately? Well, in the last month alone, I put a front duplex in Bayswater on the market. Recent sales were showing high 400s to low 500s. We went on, not before we went to market, I went out, saw the property, came to the owner with all my suggested improvements. Our handyman went through, we did mulching, we did fix-ups, we did lots of small things to present it at its absolute best. My seller also took my advice. We got a quote for staging. They were happy with the price for staging, and my trusted stager went through. She touches up some other small things that she sees to get that presentation as good as possible. The property itself had a few awkward areas where I was worried that buyers might not see a use for it as well. So the staging really helped show how practically usable the home was and, show it at its absolute best. We ended up having a huge number of buyers through the property. I'll look that up while we're talking, but we had 7 or 8 offers in the end, and obviously we were able to capture an exceptional set of marketing that showed the property. I took the walkthrough video for my East Coast investors. The other thing that I do for marketing that local agents don't have is that I have 17 buyers agents that are on my database that I've built up relationships with over the years, and most of them use us for property management. And what I do especially when I get an investor focused property, anything that, is sort of 500 to 800K, I send it out to that group of 17 buyers agents, and I'm regularly getting offers every month from this group. And it's tapping into a market that otherwise might not be looking in that suburb. And it's a market that a local agent isn't going to have. Now, local agents have local buyers, and local buyers look on local real estate portals of realestate.com and REWA. So every agent's going to be similar into the buyers that they can access there. But the other buyers that I can access through these 17 buyers agents, most of them are looking for 4 or 5 buyers at a time. It's 100 genuine, real buyers that if I can put all the info in front of them and make it easy for them, I'm getting offers every month that adds to this demand. So I did that with this Bayswater property. We had 41 buyers through, 16 indicated that they had interest. I had 7 or 8, very good offers, turned away another 5 or 6 people that were just not on the mark for price. Worked up all the competition, made sure everyone had put forward their best price, and we ended up getting 112,000 above asking price. Our asking price was from $499. We got 612, which is an absolute record for this type of property in the area. And it all comes down to these 5 things working together to get the best price for the property. Everyone got set a deadline. Everyone got their offer in time. Everyone knew that they had to sharpen up their price. Everyone saw one another at the home open. They knew how much other competition they were against. And I negotiated out the best possible price for my client, who's absolutely thrilled. Why were they selling? Well, they were wanting to upgrade their home. They needed the extra borrowing capacity and money back. And now they've got far more than they thought that they were going to get. And it's going to make that home dream a greater reality. And I think I can't wait to see what they end up purchasing. And we may end up helping them on the buyer's agency side if they struggle with the competition in this market to secure something. So that's the 5 strategic steps that we would take in order to get the best price. And if you do want an appraisal on your property anywhere in Perth, reach out. Always happy to update you on price. And I'm not just obviously about selling the property. I want to make sure that we're doing it for the right reasons. I want to do it strategically around your lease end date. I want to apply my overarching strategy for getting the best price, ensure that it's presented at its best, and we do all the other things to do that. And that's why I keep being a sales agent, because I love seeing the results that I can get for people. Catch you on the next one.
Just a reminder, the information discussed in this podcast is general in nature. As we don't know your specific situation, you should always seek professional advice before taking any action. For free market reports on your suburbs of interest and other helpful resources to grow your wealth, make sure you join my property investor update at investorsedge.com.au/join. And finally, make sure you're a member of our Perth Property Investment Facebook group. to be part of the conversation with other like-minded investors, get help to your questions, and get a feel for what's going on out there in the market. I'll see you in the group.